Hey everyone. So I'm here today with Shane from MIGRO, who is like the only person I know that's tested and analyzed almost every grow light on the market today. And is really one of the few experts that has experience in pretty much all the different types of grow light technologies. But yeah. Do you want to sort of introduce yourself for the people that are unfamiliar with you and your channel?
Yeah, thanks very much, Dan. Much appreciated. By the way, love your channel, Hemp in a Pot. Big fan. It's got some great content on it. I've got my own channel. It's called the Micro Grow Lighting Channel, and it's been going for about 3 or 4 years, and I do a mixture of testing and reviewing all the new lights that come to the market from the biggest and best manufacturers, and do a series of videos on tips on how to optimize your grow lighting to maximize your yield, and various aspects of the science and technology, as well as interviews with leaders in the field.
Okay. So we've been emailing back and forth a couple of times, and we quickly realized that I want to ask way too many questions to fit in one video. So instead, this will be split into sort of a series of videos, and then we can cover each topic and spend more time discussing each. And for the first topic, I kind of want to go over the question I get asked the most often, which is, hey, I'm a new grower starting out. Can you recommend a grow light for me? And I know this is a loaded question because of all the variables attached to it. So maybe we can try and break it down to answer each variable piece by piece and start out with, I guess, real broadly, which type of lights do you think are the easiest to work with?
Yeah, I think so. In the past, there was various different technologies were at play and sort of somewhat competing with each other. But there's pretty much a clear winner now these days, which is LED technology. It's become efficient. It's got great spectrum, so basically puts out white light, which has all the spectrum constituents that we want for good, healthy plant growth. Um, they are coming down in terms of price, and they're now down at a point where they are pretty affordable. They allow you to spread the light out evenly over your canopy, which sort of concentrated single light fixtures that were used previously didn't. And yeah, they've become reliable too over time. So there's no doubt I would recommend LED lighting for anybody starting today. After that, it's about the sort of the quality or the effectiveness or efficiency of that light. And also then there's a couple of different ways or formats of those lights that you can use. And in terms of efficiency, it's a bit like when I'm advising people, I usually talk, it's a bit like, purchasing a car, which, where if you're going to be using something day in, day out, which you are with the grow light, it's well worth, I think, investing a little bit extra upfront to get a high efficiency fixture, because you're going to have pretty extensive electricity bills. It's going to be probably the biggest energy device that consumes the most energy in your house, by quite a distance, and therefore you get a good return for spending a little bit more upfront to get a higher efficiency fixture. And then the last part, in terms of what form or what shape or what size or what wattage, that's really down to sizing the light properly for your grow area. So when anybody comes to me to ask about a light, the first question I ask them is, what size is your grow area? And for to answer that, with modern LED fixtures, you should be budgeting somewhere in the region of about 300 watts per square meter, or about 30 watts per square foot of high efficiency LED, and that will give you a high yield from your grow space. Um, and then in terms of what particular brand or model, what I'd suggest is to go to a site like my site, MIGRO, and have a look at light reviews, see what the specific output is of that light, see what people think of it, search around, see try and find other people that are using that light and get independent views on the brand and the form of light that you're intending to use. But that would be, to sum it up, that would be the how I would go about it.
So when you say something like, well, it's a little bit more expensive, what are you comparing it with? What other options would they choose that would be more budget friendly, I guess? And is it actually more budget friendly over time? Because I know you also talked about electrical costs.
Yeah, well, let's take, for example, I reviewed a very good budget light there recently from Viper Spectra called the P1000. And that's about a 100-watt fixture. It's rated for a 2 foot by 2 foot or 60 by 60 centimeter grow area. And it's a good build quality, has pretty good efficiency. In terms of its output. It's full spectrum, so the light spectrum coming from it is perfectly suitable. And you can get one of those for as little as $90, sort of plus taxes and shipping, which is extremely good value for money. And you could spend up to twice as much as that for the same wattage with about 25% higher efficiency. 20% higher efficiency. And just to put it in perspective, spending nearly twice as much would pay back on energy saving within about 2 years. So I on the channel recently, I published a video on the best value grow light, and I did it for this exact purpose, which was to demonstrate if you buy a relatively cheaper, less efficient grow light, you're spending less upfront, but you'll spend the same over 3-year lifespan as you would if you bought a high efficiency one and spent nearly twice as much. So, and you could make that same analogy with buying a car or buying lots of other devices that if they're using up energy, you have basically a payback period for spending more on high efficiency fixtures. The only other one thing I'd say is high efficiency means lower footprint in terms of electricity and also lower heat. So if you are having trouble with heat, or you live in a very warm environment, or you want to really pack as much light into your tent as possible and maximize the yield, it's advisable to go for higher efficiency fixtures up front.
Okay, so you're actually comparing different types of LEDs and saying that going with a higher efficiency LED is more worth it in the long run, correct?
Yes.
Okay, as
Yes.
opposed to, then what about other lighting technologies? Is there ever consideration for one of those for a beginner or no? 'Cause
No, not really now. No. So first of all, HID, that's high pressure sodium bulbs and ceramic metal halide bulbs, are relatively cheap for high wattages. So for 600 and 1,000-watt fixtures. But when you go down to a 150 watt high pressure sodium bulb, for example, which is the smallest you can get, that's about the same price. Well, it'll be more. It'll be a higher price actually than what I just spoke about, the Viper Spectra for $90, and the Viper Spectra, because it's more efficient, even though it's only 100 watts, it'll actually output more power, so more usable light for plants than the 150 watt HPS. So we're really gone past justifying HID systems. The only time really I see them being useful anymore and economically useful is for people who supplementally light greenhouses, for example, where they wouldn't be using the fixtures all the time. So you only get the benefit of an efficient fixture if you're using it a lot, in that you get the opportunity to make the savings on electricity. So that's the only time that, or if somebody was they are only growing for a few months of the year in the winter or something like that indoors. I might say, look, don't waste your money on an LED if you're not going to use it that much. But most growers, remember you're running your lights anywhere between 12 and 20 hours a day. That's 5,000 hours a year. That's a lot of hours. That's a lot of work your light is going to be doing. So buying a relatively high efficiency fixture is a no brainer really at this stage. It's we've passed that argument.
Okay. Then, so then right now we're sort of weighing between the two. I know you mentioned the Viper Spectra a lot. Is that something you would recommend, or is there more of a range? Because you also mentioned, well, they would actually save more within 2 years if they bought a more efficient LED system.
Yeah, so again, it's different. So often it just depends on your approach in life. That some people don't want to buy twice. For example, they want to buy the best up front and have the benefit of having the best up front, and they don't want to be having to rebuy in a year or two because they realize that they didn't get what would be the best value in the long term. Other people want to pay as little as possible up front, or only can pay as little as possible up front because they have a limited budget. So, I think there's an argument for either way. I don't make a judgment on what people want. I just try and help them make the right decision for them in terms of if you're looking at a slightly lower efficiency but cheaper cost up front. I try to advise people in that range. What are the good options in that range? And I make lights myself. I make the MIGRO array range. It tries to strike a balance actually in that sense, and that I didn't go for the highest efficiency, but it's pretty close to the highest efficiency. But I cost engineered the product to make sure that it's affordable and accessible for lots of people. So there's lots of solutions out there. It's a very interesting time for the market because there's people coming up with lots of different solutions at lots of different price ranges, which is fantastic. It gives us lots of different options. The only problem then is it becomes confusing. Which one do I pick? And so I'm trying to strip away the confusion and let people get down to what's important. And one thing that's a real benefit now is that spectrum is no longer, you don't really have to be concerned about the light spectrum or light quality. White light, which nearly all LED grow light manufacturers use now, is perfect. It's totally adequate to grow. You don't need anything else. You can supplement with things like far red and UV to enhance certain aspects. But white light at high intensity will deliver really good quality growth and really good quality yield. People used to be confused by, the blue and red LEDs and the HPS spectrum and all this sort of stuff. You really don't have to think about it too much. If it's a white light, it's perfectly suitable. And then after that, as I said, it's really down to the quality of the fixture. Have they got the right size and shaped and wattage fixture for the grow space that you have? Again, in MIGRO, we make our systems modular. So we start off with quite small lights, and you can expand up to much bigger lights to cover bigger areas. Some manufacturers only do big fixtures or only do small fixtures. So yeah, it's really, and then sorry, another aspect, of course, is about quality and reputation and service. So as I said, you just search around, you go listen to people's reviews, hear what's being said on forums, and if you're narrowing down to a decision, just do some due diligence, going around and asking a few people how they find their fixture or their service. And on the internet these days, you'll find out pretty quickly. People aren't shy in giving negative feedback these days. So if you're not delivering service, you'll find out in comment sections and places pretty quickly.
Okay. I know you also sort of mentioned the modular design with your lights, and I've seen your lights. I actually haven't used them before, but I've noticed a problem with the lights I'm working with, even the Viper Spectra that you've talked about, that the way the lights are positioned, you get this really big hotspot in the center of extreme efficiency, but it sort of dissipates extremely quickly once you reach the edges of the tent.
Yeah.
And is that something you considered when making your lights? And is that something you think makes it better for the market?
Absolutely, yeah. So again, just to reference what used to be available and what's available now. So it used to be in a 4 foot by 4 foot tent, for example, you'd put one big 600-watt bulb with a reflector, and you'd get this really high intensity directly underneath, and then it would reduce quite rapidly down towards the edges. And that was difficult to deal with. You'd have plants that were under high stress in the middle and low stress at the edges and all that sort of stuff. And the way, again, I describe it to people a little bit is, if you think about the way we light our living spaces now, for example, we often use lots of small lights, downlighters, for example, and it's to spread out that light and give a nice pool of light around the total area. And LEDs allow us to do that. And the format that a lot of manufacturers, including myself here at MIGRO, use is LED bars now. So LED bars are strips of lights, and by the mere fact that they're physically long and that you can separate them apart means that you can have light. The light fixture can be spread over the whole of your grow area, and therefore will spread the light evenly over the whole of your grow canopy. And the benefit with the bars as well is that even though the physical fixture is large, the actual surface area of the fixture is not that big. So there's lots of room in between those bars for airflow and for you to go in and check your plants and inspect them, and for heat to dissipate and all that sort of stuff. So I would say that, in my view, the LED bar type is the best solution for getting even spread of light over the canopy, and as I said, also allowing you good access into the canopy and allowing airflow and air circulation.
Right. And I've also noticed that with like the 4x4s, I don't think I've seen bar lighting other than yours that go down past 3x3. So it's actually really nice to see it slowly going to the residential market of spreading it out. And I really do think your lights strike a really good balance for a beginner grower, just because it does make it easier for them to grow with the more even lighting throughout the entire tent, while striking a good balance on price and efficiency.
Um, yeah, again, I think there's room for lots of different solutions. And so I'm trying to, as I said, I'm trying to strike what I think is a good balance between efficiency and modularity and cost and all those things. But there's people out there that, for example, just love high efficiency, and they really chase the most efficient light out there, and that's what they want, and that's what they want next. There's other people that want to spend as little as possible, so all those opinions are valid. However, having tested many grow lights in the last 4 or 5 years and reviewed them, there were certain things that I found that I just saw over and over again that I thought were things that I didn't want, certainly in my light. So simple things like having the driver, the transformer for the LED light mounted on top of the fixture. I always thought that was a bit silly. The driver is the first thing that will fail usually in an LED light system. So it's the most common source of failure in a LED light system is the power supply. And generally electronics fail due to high heat, and therefore to put the most sensitive and delicate device or on top of a heater, your light, which is generating the heat in the tent, doesn't seem like a very sensible decision to me. So, that was one principle that I wanted to do, was to take it off. And also it lightens, it reduces the weight, the hanging weight of the light fixture. Next was, as you say, about the form, and a lot of the fixtures that particularly the bigger manufacturer were bringing out were about we're sort of 500 watt fixed, starting at 500 watts, and we're for a 4x4 minimum. And you don't have much flexibility to adapt it to any other sort of situation or position, so you can't sort of break it down. It's one size fits all. So certainly I wanted to have modularity. Um, and the way my system works, the MIGRO system works, is you can literally add bars onto each other and expand your system just to suit different grow sizes. There are options out there where you can buy individual bars, but again, I had tested some of them, and the frustration was that you'd end up having to hang them individually. So you'd have to have a hanger on the end of each bar and a cable. So you basically 3 cables hanging down your tent for each bar. So if you're putting 3 bars in the tent, you would have 9 cables hanging down, which ended up getting very congested and quite messy. And so, yeah, I came up with a solution which tried to make these systems more elegant. And as an engineer, I like things that are simple and functional and aesthetically pleasing. I do like things to look nice as well. So, yeah, we spent quite some time, and I went through a lot of iterations of actually stripping out unnecessary things and reducing everything down to its sort of bare bones, and then making sure that it was kind of sexy too. So I think I've hit all those marks. I've tried to anyway. Certainly the response has been very good. The last few months have been very busy, so it seems to be appealing to enough people anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what you mentioned earlier, where people have these opinions on, well, I want to buy the most efficient, most expensive light, or I want to buy the most budget friendly light. Those opinions usually aren't formed yet when there's a new grower, because then they're just pretty much trying to absorb a lot of information all at once. And
Absolutely.
a lot of times I know when they ask me and I sort of say, well, it depends. I really hate saying that, because then they'll get 5 questions back in return when all they were hoping for was sort of a simple response, because they're already taking in so much information. So I think by being able to say, like, well, if you're on a budget, this could be a good option. If you're looking for efficiency over the long run, and you can recapture your money back within a year or so, this would be a better option for this reason. And then just giving them these sort of tiers, and it really does help in the decision making process. And then maybe further down the line, when they are more proficient in growing, then if they're going for a larger light for a larger grow area, they would definitely have more opinions on these things. But it sounds like from your answer, you do recommend your lights as a good balance between budget friendly and efficiency.
Yeah, it
Right.
has. I think it strikes a good balance. But again, and I hope the channel reflects this, is that there are many solutions out there, and as I said, people will approach things in a different way. Like, I have to admit, I've never bought a new car. I buy old cars. I buy cars that are 7 or 8 years old, well looked after, and that to me is good value. I know people who would be appalled at that, and they really want to have a bright, shiny, new car smell and all those things, and never have to worry about any breakdowns or warranties or any of that sort of thing. So we all approach things in different ways, and what I try to do in the channel is maybe um, give people a bit of comfort about their decisions, and saying, this is a good light for this reason, and this is a good light for a different reason, but they're both good lights, and I'm happy to recommend them all, and try to explain it so people don't think that there's a contradiction there, that they appreciate the value of different approaches.
I think with pretty much any of the current lighting, the full spectrum, whether it's chip on board lighting, quantum board lighting, if I had to use any of them for next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, I don't think I'd have any issue with I mean, when we're talking about price differences, we're talking about, maybe 5-10%, and all of them in the same price brackets usually run about the same.
Yes.
So yeah, it's definitely, except also another issue is that then when we look at the price bracket, we're looking at 100 different models.
Yeah, and just to round that off, so I did a calculation, as I said, on the total cost over 3 years for a big range of different light fixtures. And the difference in the fixture cost in terms of how many dollars per watt they cost, um, there was a factor of almost two. So between the cheapest light and the most expensive light, there was nearly twice the difference. But when you included the running cost over 3 years, that gap narrowed down very, very slight to a very small gap. So they were within, I can't remember exactly the figures, but they were within, say, about 10 or 15% of each other when you took in the total running cost over 3 years. So really what it's saying is you can go either way and you're going to end up in about the same place after 3 years. The question is, after that, where will you be? And in the meantime, what did you benefit? So as I said, if you're trying to if you're trying to minimize your footprint, so you're concerned about putting on big electricity costs on your bill, for example, or you're really worried about heat, or you have some real, or you want, as I said, you want to really pack in as much light as possible into an area, I would recommend high efficiency. I'd recommend it because you're going to get the benefit of the high efficiency through reduced heat in the tent, and you've got a lower electricity cost for that period of time. However, if you're a new grower and you're just starting off and you're not really that committed and you're not too sure and you've got all these different things to buy and it's all a bit, I would say, and it's a bit back to the car analogy. You'd usually recommend somebody buying their first car, just buy a cheap car. You're probably going to put a few dents in it. You're probably going to make a few, make some parking errors or whatever. And it's a bit the same with the new light. If you're going to buy a small new light, you're just getting started off. Your budget is tight. I go just get a Viper Spectra, get going, or get a Mars Hydro, get this one, whatever, and settle in, get going, gain some experience, and then if you're expanding up from that point, you might decide to level up on the lighting. You may not, but you might start to level up. And like quite often when people are coming to me about that leveling up, they think they need to throw away their old fixture to get a new fixture. And most of the time I'm going, no, 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 don't throw that away. It's perfectly good. You only bought it 2 years ago. It's not the highest efficiency or the best fixture ever, but you can get another 2 or 3 years out of it. So keep on. So yeah, it's from my point of view, it's trying to give people the best guidance to get the best experience they can with regard to their lighting, and you're remembering that the lighting is the source of energy for your plants. It's what is generating everything within that tent. So if you can get that right, get the right light level, get the right light choice for your grow size and situation. It's a foundation for everything else, to be successful.
Okay. And I think we've covered the question pretty well. Just one last thing, real quick. For anyone looking at the current lights on the market, how would they be able to measure the efficiency? Is there something that's stated, or is there something that they have to sort of do the research to figure that out?
Uh, yeah, so these days it is mostly stated, and so it's just a little bit tricky because there's two sort of figures which are quoted. One is the total light output from the fixture. That's called a PPF, and that is the amount of light the fixture throws out. There's another measure which is the usable PPF, or often it can be shown in a PAR map. So you're showing the amount of photosynthetically active radiation is hitting its target grow area, its specified grow area. And that's the best information because it's not just showing you, because for example, you could have a light fixture that spreads the light out very wide, and there's lots of light is overshooting your the tops of your plants and not usable. You need one that the power map will show you uh, how much power is hitting every part of your grow area, and it'll also tell you how efficient the system is overall. In that it's showing you how much light is being delivered onto the plant canopy, not the output from the fixture. So that's an important differentiation. And where you see a power map, what you're looking for is an average of somewhere between maybe 500 and 1,000 micromoles, 500 being sort of a good starting point, 1,000 being pretty much the maximum you want to go to as an average. And what you're looking for is to see that those numbers are fairly consistent across the grow area. So if it's a 4x4, usually it'll be divided up into a grid, and in each of the little squares will be a number representing the power level. And you're just looking to see, is there good high numbers all around that grid, to make sure that all your plants or all parts of your grow are going to be adequately lit.
I think we've definitely answered all aspects of the question pretty well. Before we close, is there anything you want to say, Shane, or anything you want to plug?
No, no, really. As I said, I've got a lot of individual light reviews on the channel. I've done some summaries of lists of all those grow lights that I've tested and comparing them for what we talked about for efficiency and cost and running cost over 3 years. And looking at that, hopefully, and by the way, all these videos are only maximum might be 10 minutes long. Most of them are 3 or 4 minutes long, so it's not a huge amount of time. Go and have a little look. See for the light fixture you're thinking of, how it performs, what the rating is of it in terms of efficiency. So where does it lie in that value decision of higher efficiency or lower efficiency? And yeah, check us out. Check us out. It's MIGRO YouTube channel, and it's migrolight.com is the website address. And if anybody has any questions as well, we've got a contact form on the website. Please send through a message. We get back to everybody within a day, and you'll get as unbiased advice for to help you with your decision making as we can possibly give you.
Yeah, definitely be sure to check out Shane's channel, and I'll have a link to it in the description below. Again, thank you so much, Shane, for your time, and I'll talk to you soon.
It's been a real pleasure, Dan. Thanks. Talk soon.